It really does make you wonder. Was all of this really necessary? Or did Ferrari rush into something that they didn't really fully understand? Or worse, didn't even need to? Is this a sign of corporate meddling about to make Enzo Ferrari turn in his grave? So it's quite safe to say that Ferrari, they developed themselves into a crisis that was an enormous strategic bet, not a means to guarantee victory. And the question is starting to waft around the world. Who is to blame? Is Lewis Hamilton to blame? Now I can immediately get you to stop typing in the comments. Short answer is no. Because at the end of the day, even though Lewis Hamilton is not only a huge presence within Formula One, but a huge presence in general, internationally, he is not bigger than Ferrari. He is a part of Ferrari, and in terms of responsibility, accountability, blame, what have you, it's all one big unit. It's part of why Ferrari is so mysterious and unique and iconic. It's this collective of people, talented individuals, engineers and whatnot, and they share the successes, they share the failures. So to put it all on one guy, it's a major oversimplification. But I will explain. There are elements here that really suggest that all of this was a self-inflicted disaster. This didn't need to happen. Lewis does have faith in the project though, and the team to fix the issue, so therefore the onus is mostly tied to the Scuderia for making this bet at a time when last year's car was capable of winning the Constructors last year, especially had it not been for that costly mid-season slump. However, I do believe that everyone from John Elkann, the chairman of Ferrari, the car company, downwards, needs to have some share of responsibility on their shoulders. This is a team effort for them to realize, recognize, own, and then get themselves out of it. Because simply put, they took a gamble and they lost. And now that gamble seemingly transformed itself into a silver arrow rather than a Ferrari. Because according to various publications, including the German outlet Bild, the start to Lewis Hamilton's season is somewhat similar to that of Michael Schumacher's back in 1996, when German outlets were referring to the admittedly grotesque Ferrari F310 as the red cucumber. Not fast enough for where the team nor the driver deserved to be. You could argue the same thing is applying to Lewis Hamilton, that the start to his 2025 campaign is very much like Schumacher's. Are we seeing a return to that oddly coloured vegetable? But let's be honest, the car isn't bad per se. It's capable of scoring points, but it's just not in a place where Ferrari should be. Especially off of the back of a season which saw both Leclerc and Sainz thrash that car to be within 14 points of McLaren and nearly secure their first team title since 2008. So surely the best bet, especially going into 2026 brand new regulations, is just build on the theme, kind of like what everyone else was doing. And in some cases further down the field, they were simply just recycling and modifying the existing chassis from 2024. And what's also become nebulous are the hopes of Ferrari to emulate what they did last year, and it really brings up several bones of contention, most notably at least 2 or 3, which I would like to share with you now. The upgrade path, the development path, and the prospect of the drivers splitting the team down the middle. Italian reports suggest Ferrari has a floor upgrade ready, a potential fix for the car's instability and narrow operating window, the same issues that have plagued Red Bull and Mercedes in the last couple of years. It's a beacon of hope, seemingly. But here's the catch. Reportedly, the Maranello Aero team are quite happy for it to be ready to go, used at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and then just see what happens. However, the upper management, including the likes of Loïc Serra and Fred Vasseur, want to be a little bit more hesitant, measured, and bring it into a bigger swathe of upgrades that is reportedly ready for the Miami Grand Prix. They would rather understand it more in the wind tunnel, seemingly, than just rush things in. We may see this in FP1. Well, I mean, we won't see it because, well, it's the floor. We will maybe see the actions and results in that practice session. Whether or not they decide to run with it during the race weekend for the rest of it, that remains to be seen. We'll find out more, well, come the race. It's understandable, though. Last year's upgrade misfire around Spain derailed their entire mid-season, but now, with pressure mounting and no clear direction, that delay feels really risky. This lack of a call to action, it just spreads a disconnect, indecision, and a team short on momentum. Whereas my call to action? Far clearer. Hit subscribe if you're enjoying the ride. Thank you. Another contentious bone to pick with the team is that of the fundamental path of the car itself. Despite Lewis and Charles showcasing their relationship as people to be going rather well, demonstrating their desires to click with Ferrari, bring it out of this current funk, but when it comes to the matter of how to do it, there may be divergence on display. And that is something that Ferrari has rarely had to deal with on a historic and reputational level. Ferrari would revolve itself around one driver and then hope the second driver can do their best to keep up. And if they just so happen to have a similar style, super. However, with things so close right now amongst the front-running pack and Red Bull exhaustively proving to us that this model just doesn't work at the moment, it's impractical, then Ferrari are sort of left at a crossroads as in, well, what do we do? Which driver do we follow? Do we try and follow them both, or just do our own thing and ignore the drivers? It's just, there's a bit of a balancing act between these four different scenarios, and all this is doing is wasting time, especially when we're about to get the Race 9 Flexi Wing clarification for the front wing, and then the roster may completely upset itself all over again. But both drivers need to be on the same page and push each other forward, which McLaren on paper have got going on right now, but other factors may seek to compromise that, but that's for another video. Because in the case of the Scuderia, other reports are coming to suggest that their two drivers have differing outlooks as to the path Ferrari chooses to bring the team back into contention for both titles. And quite honestly, I don't blame either of them for getting a little bit shirty right now, because they have just causes to try and get the team behind them, so that means they can mount some sort of plan of attack for this year or maybe next. Charles faces yet another year of missed potential, a title chance slipping away again through no fault of his own. Meanwhile, Lewis's dream start at Ferrari is already slipping through his fingers, risking damage to his reputation because he can't emulate what Alonso and Vettel did. I mean, that's gone. As a result, both men have come up with solutions, and they are seemingly not in sync. Now, this could suggest that there may be a more subtle war of words going on. Nothing bombastic, not dramatic, and certainly not manipulated by the likes of certain TV producers over team radio. No. This is about more of the fundamentals as to where the development of this car goes, especially in the moment when Ferrari really developed themselves into a corner and they've just made a 2024 Mercedes. But I'm quite certain that many of you out there are keen to understand my thoughts about both drivers, and there are lots of thoughts regarding Lewis since, well, he is the newest driver, so, yeah, allow me to try and, balance myself around a little bit better than what Ferrari's able to do with their car right now. Understandably, Lewis brought a wealth of experience and specific preferences, leading to tailored modifications such as updates to the steering wheel to incorporate features he favoured during his tenure at Mercedes, and despite these adjustments and others, he's faced difficulties adapting to this car, citing underperformance and a notable deficit compared to Leclerc's setup, suggesting that he could be losing up to 1/10 of a second per lap. Now you might be thinking, historically, 1/10 of a second? Really? That's not that big of a deal. It's annoying, it's not helpful, but it's not the end of the world. Well, I mean, just look at what happened with Yuki Tsunoda in the Japanese qualifying, and 2/10? That was the difference between him making it into Q3 and not. So 1/10 of a second right now, it's now getting to the point where hundredths count. Now, of course, people will be quick to point out that if Ferrari ported over traits that Mercedes installed into the W15 to satisfy the demands of their star driver that were lacking in the W14, upon the team not heeding the warnings from Lewis for the W13, then Ferrari may have leaned too heavily on Mercedes' philosophies, without fully grasping their intricacies, even with two former Mercedes personnel on board. And what may be broached in the future, though likely I'm pretty sure Lewis would not welcome this suggestion, is that maybe the 7-time world champion's feedback was simply not in step with the current set of regulations. However, to say that is a gross oversimplification. I must stress that. Ferrari is a collective of hundreds of talented engineers and individuals, so no one person rules the roost. Like I said, everyone works for Ferrari. No one is bigger than them. Adrian Newey tried to test it, but failed. So therefore everyone is accountable for when Ferrari falters, but also succeeds. It's this mystique and inherent unity which has made the brand so powerful globally. Sure, there are reports and assertions that maybe Ferrari were taking notes regarding what Lewis was saying about the car and the Mercedes that he didn't like, so that means maybe he could hit the ground running over at Ferrari, that they were implementing certain elements into the SF25. But again, it's really oversimplifying the situation where Ferrari just took these notes and simply didn't know what to make of them. They didn't know the finer details, which allowed Lewis to eventually win 2 Grand Prix and have some fairly decent races, but then otherwise simply not, because that Mercedes had such a narrow operating window that within one session to another, Lewis would be doing fairly well, and then suddenly not, between FP3 in qualifying, temperatures, track conditions, track evolution. The more things change, the more things stay the same, apparently. Ultimately, Ferrari were the ones to make this call, to do all of this, so the onus is on them primarily. But not just the Scuderia, but more on that later. Because quite honestly, the best thing that I think Ferrari should have done was just to do what everyone else was doing. Just take the SF24 and evolve it just one more year before you go into 2026 and everything changes. Okay, maybe they wanted to get a handle on the pull rod suspension because it's a fundamental change, it's worked with some other teams, so that means they can have a year of pain, and then next year they might be able to have a better grasp of it. But at the same time, they've got Lewis Hamilton in this car. He cannot be used as a guinea pig during this season because now he's looking at really just asserting to himself and telling himself that, yeah, he ain't going to be going for a world championship bid this year. That dream is gone, even though originally he did claim that Ferrari had every ingredient to go and win a world championship, especially with him in it. That is a major climb down, and it's got a lot to do with the way Ferrari has executed itself. And I'm talking about operationally, not the, the... Ask Lewis to adapt, then tailor the car around his style from there. That's exactly what happened when he joined Mercedes in 2013. Back then, he stepped into the W04, a car which was already developed by Braun's team with input from Rosberg and Schumacher. It was simply an evolution of the W03, featuring innovations like Frigg suspension, a refined aero package, simple as. Hamilton didn't reshape the car. Instead, he just adapted, rolled with the punches, and then added his contributions to the point where he did find some success with winning the 2013 Hungarian Grand Prix. So there was hope for the future. It proved to be a relative success. It was enough that year for the doubters to be silenced, and the decision to leave McLaren to go to Mercedes looked like a fairly safe bet. And then ultimately, it set up a dynasty which lasted the rest of the decade. So with Lewis just adapting to what was already there, it paid dividends in a relatively short space of time for a very long time. Contrast that to what's going on at Ferrari. Ferrari tried to develop a car around him too soon, and it's not going nearly as smoothly. Conversely, Leclerc has shown a preference for a different developmental approach, focusing on setups that align with his driving style specifically, because at the moment he has scored more points than Lewis, and maybe for particular tropes and characteristics from last year's car to be represented here. A car which arguably produced Charles' most successful season yet. Yes, I know you'll be saying, well, he was still not in contention for the World Championship, but still, it was probably one of his most complete and accomplished seasons yet. 3 wins, 2 of them incredibly meaningful to him, Monaco and Monza, a second time. However, this has really proved that even though these 2 men are trying their best to be really good friends and standing together in the face of Ferrari incompetency and derision and indecision, there is still going to be that issue as to which driver is going to be heard more when it comes to developing the car that they go racing in. Now, of course, this type of phenomena is not uncommon in motorsport, but it is for this particular team. It underscores the challenge Ferrari faces in balancing the car's development to suit both of them. Is it even possible? Well, I mean, it has to be. And it's all punctuated by the fact that Ferrari decided to just ditch the push rod suspension and go for pull rod, a major gamble. This design has introduced handling challenges, especially under braking, affecting both drivers' confidence and performance, and leading to examples where, around testing, the car, as reported by Martin Brundle, would not turn the way either driver wanted it to. Massive understeer. So they really got to get a handle on this really quickly if they hope to stand any chance of getting back in touch of the top 3 in the constructors, because right now it's gotten to a point where Mercedes have double the constructors' points. This time last year, Mercedes only had 26 points to their name, whereas now they have triple that. If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan and arrived at Ferrari, I feel for you right now, because their present lot is not what is to be expected. A present where Ferrari not only finds themselves losing ground to their rivals in both championships, but one which was compounded by 2 fundamental technical breaches, slam dunks in the world of F1, as George Russell would attest last year at Spa. Mercedes were chastised for that, and so should Ferrari for those transgressions. These are the kind of foul-ups you cannot allow to slip through the cracks, because it can cost you so many points. And those points lost, has cost them majorly in keeping up with Red Bull. And to top it all off, you got two big name drivers in the sport, chomping at the bit to justify their case in developing the car their way and then really asserting behind the scenes, in the backrooms, away from the cameras, who really is in charge. As a result, you could say we're left with a car that isn't terrible, but really bamboozled as to what it actually is, with a team that is equally baffled as to the way they go about racing. Do they rush parts onto the car to gain some sense of equilibrium, or do they just wait for the right moment for a huge sea change, a package to drop, and act as a defined turning point, where everything comes together? But the fact of the matter is, though, is that their rivals just developed what they already did. We remembered what happened with Mercedes 2022, 23, 24. They kept changing the concept, and they had to start from square one. This year, they didn't do that, and look where they are right now. They're sitting pretty. For Leclerc, it's yet another lost season where the whims of the team have gotten in the way of simply producing a car that would give him a chance to go racing and win, something that the SF24 ultimately did become. For Hamilton, his initial hopes of maybe, just maybe, having a crack at the driver's title for this year, they're already up in smoke. But you know what? I'm really starting to think that maybe this is bigger than Scuderia Ferrari. Maybe it's not them, the sole ones to blame almost, you know. I'm gonna get the spanner of speculation out here, and I'm gonna keep it, I would say semi-erect in the situation, because maybe this goes back decades to maybe an edict established by the founder of Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, and it being completely eroded and it disappearing. And this, what we're seeing right now, we're seeing the consequences. Corporate micromanagement completely ruining it. I think it might be to do with the chairman and his CEO, Benedetto Vigni. I think it's quite safe to say that the car company is very much benefiting from the arrival of Lewis Hamilton, enabling the champion to begin work on a modern-day version of the iconic F40 hypercar from the 1980s. A car which is increasingly getting rarer and rarer because it was quite a fragile beast at the best of times, but then you get all these reckless millionaires with more money than sense completely ruining them by crashing them, trying to do some silly stunts and go, I got Ferrari! Oh! So yeah, I'm quite happy that Lewis gets to have a little project going on behind the scenes with the updated F40, the F44, clever name. It was much like what Michael Schumacher was doing with the Enzo, albeit on a technical level, less bombastic promotional tools, whereas with the F44, you get some sort of photograph of a concept of the rear, the more haunched rear and slightly adjusted rear wing, and people are salivating over it, using social media, billboards, advertising. This is very unbecoming for Ferrari, who historically eschewed conventional commercials and advertisements, tabloid papers, whatnot. They allowed their cars, according to Enzo, to advertise the company on their own. And it's been a success, which is why Ferrari posters for the longest time were pin-ups on children's walls. Also, if you are a member of the Tifosi or a long-standing Ferrari fan, then you will understand this next bit very, very clearly. Historically, Enzo Ferrari established a massive gap between the racing team and the car company. He maintained a clear distinction between those entities. He prioritized racing, viewing the productions of road cars primarily as a means to fund the company's motorsport endeavors. And this approach allowed the racing team to operate with considerable autonomy, focusing on achieving success on the track, and thusly working well with the Agnelli family, who ran the car company with Fiat's oversight, because their success in various series brought customers to their door. Fair trade. Despite that, though, I do get the sense that there is a shift going on right now where the Agnelli family, through the likes of John Elkann, he is a direct descendant from those days, of reassuming control and just beginning to erode that gap, that division, for the sake of absolute profit. Because let's be real, Ferrari, Formula One, it's all getting really juicy in terms of money. And having that disconnect where Ferrari can do their own thing and the car company are really kept that distance away? No, you can't be doing that. So therefore, there's been a change toward a more integrated approach between Ferrari's corporate leadership and its F1 operations, eroding that historic pact made by their founding father. Since taking over 4 years ago, Vigna has been doing his best to blur that historic divide. Reports even claiming that he's vetoed decisions from team principal Fred Vasseur when he just started in 2023. Vigna talks about collaboration, growth through mistakes, and brand synergy, all good buzzwords, but is that what Ferrari fans want? Especially in Italy, where tradition really matters? Is this the kind of thing that the Tifosi are even bothered with? Because Ferrari has historically just allowed the racing to do the talking. not allowing algorithms and analytics and metrics to do that. And now it's looking more obvious that Ferrari's corporate hands, they're in the cockpit and they could be steering the Ferrari into their current struggles. The Scuderia would rather be allowed to do their own thing and not be distracted with corporate interference or compliance. It's partly why I reckon the HP integration has been so controversial and out of step with the team. The wins of the company are blemishing the Ferrari red with a mismatched blue. Despite many sources reporting that it didn't have to be blue, according to various marketing principles, it can be white and whatnot, but you just feel like the whims of the corporate side of Ferrari are dictating what the Ferrari of the racing department can actually do and not do. Additionally, Vigna has constantly expressed real interest and excitement of Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari, and we all know all the stuff that John Elkann has been saying, that he was the one to get the deal across the line by having that first meeting with Lewis in Monaco 2023. Vigna also viewing it as an embodiment of embracing change, taking on new challenges, he remarked. At 40, he changes and puts himself to the test in a different culture. It's wonderful not to fear change. It just really gives off this sneaking suspicion and my foam of doubt that the CEO and chairman would rather see the Lewis Hamilton acquisition really benefit the road car company more than the F1 team. And this disconnect will really muddy the waters amongst all parties, especially Lewis, who may see his reputation being absolutely damaged. Sure, he's realizing a childhood dream, but I just really worry for his own sake that this dream may turn into a nightmare that is being ruled by things other than, Formula One itself. Him arriving at this historic team when it's looking like a departure from Enzo Ferrari's original philosophy is taking place of maintaining that clear boundary. And the effectiveness of this strategy? It's really up in the air right now. It could influence the team's agility in decision-making and responsiveness to F1, an incredibly fast-paced environment. I also get the sense that maybe Vigna and Elkann, they were playing on Lewis's mind. They almost manipulated him into a way of thinking that, yes, he can realize his dream. The boy back in the day who thought that one day he would get to wear red, that this could actually happen, right in the twilight of his career, that maybe he might have a chance to reclaim his eighth. That maybe Lewis's journey at Scuderia Ferrari could therefore get more Ferrari fans to their cause. But did they really need to do that though? No. Lewis Hamilton is already a legend. He really didn't need that to include that to his roster, especially if it's gotten off to a really shaky start. And as for trying to gain more fans, as their old driver once said, Sebastian Vettel, everyone is a Ferrari fan. So this might have been a pointless exercise. Because Ferrari's already achieved global standing amongst the likes of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and so far their overhaul for this year, headlined by that bold signing, it was meant to start a new era. Instead, it's delivered confusion, conflict, a car that doesn't know what it wants to be. This radical redesign, it was aimed at aligning the car's characteristics with Lewis's driving style, yet it's completely missed the mark. It's now resulted in a team that doesn't know where it wants to develop to try and counter this. Charlotte and Lewis screaming behind the scenes, trying to get their voice heard, that their driving style should be the priority and they should be the one to lead the charge back toward the top three and beyond. It's all happening internally. They're keeping a good lid on it in front of the cameras and whatnot, but this is a really fundamental issue, and right now you just get the sense that the commercial side and the racing side, they're now just, the boundary's gone, and they're like smacking each other to see out what will reign supreme. Are they putting profit over performance? And while Hamilton's arrival was anticipated to be a catalyst for success, the current predicament underscores the risks of tailoring a team's direction too closely to a single individual's preferences without due care or consideration. Ferrari's challenge right now is to recalibrate as soon as possible. Find one clear voice that both Charles and Lewis can get behind. And most importantly, maintain the historical integrity of such a team that is Scuderia Ferrari, the only Formula One team to have been around since the beginning. To erode this absolutely infamous and special relationship or understanding between the road car division and the racing division, that's seemingly gone for the sake of commercial harmonization. No, this just feels like Ferrari want to make a quick buck before Lewis Hamilton retires from Formula One, sell him the dream, and yeah, you just feel like this was a complete and utter mismatch. I don't want it to be. I want Lewis to have a good end to his career, but right now, it's not looking like that at all. And he just seemingly looks lost. I mean, he's written off this year already. Can he survive this year? I hope so. And I really hope that Charles survives this as well, because if this keeps going and corporate meddling really gets under their skin, I could see a future where both of them leave. Lewis retires for good, and then Charles Leclerc goes to another team. And it really kicks me that all of this didn't need to happen because last year was looking pretty good. And I got the sense that when Lewis was testing last year's car, he didn't have a bad time of it. I don't think I found any comments from him. This was just a self-inflicted disaster from Ferrari. They took a gamble and they lost big time, and now they're 4th. Ugh. But one team that have not taken a gamble is Mercedes. You really need to look at them. George Russell, he's the dark horse this season so far, and even though podiums aren't always forthcoming, he's lurking around for one though. He is lurking around those places though. To find out why more attention should be given to George aside from all of the stuff that's happening between the McLarens and Max, watch this video next, straight after this one.